Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first PSY Sound podcast. Let's get a drum roll. The theme of this season is band drama, which is exciting. And our very first guest is the one and only DARYL JOHNS and his amazing collaborator and friend, CHRIS FISHMAN.
Thanks for having us, Chloe.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Chloe.
All these great people around here.
So, let's start from the beginning. Where are you guys from, and what was your childhood like?
I'm from Englewood, New Jersey. I'm from
Hermosa Beach, California.
Okay. And how did you guys meet?
We met at Monterey Jazz Festival 2012. And I was there with my high school big band. And DARYL was in this band called the Next Generation Jazz Orchestra.
I remember that.
Yeah. Next Generation Jazz Orchestra. And we met, we met at the fairgrounds. Like, I don't know, I had a friend, and he had a friend, and we were just kind of...
You friended.
We friended,
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Is he telling the story correctly?
I don't remember that. No, I'm kidding. I remember he went to Los Angeles County High School for the Arts, and they were all the kids from there were like Slytherin.
What does that mean?
Very stoic, very like silent, douchiness, silent, cold-blooded silence.
Okay.
That was. I'm just saying that was like the vibe.
That was the vibe.
I came from a different jazz arts school of thought. We were more like Gryffindor in New Jersey. We
So
were
what
like
are
happy
the school
swinging.
what are the school of thoughts for jazz people?
Well, I did, just like the region I was from was a little bit more straight ahead and happy, and the LA guys are a little bit more cold-blooded and serpent-like.
Damn.
Wow. Okay.
And I remember I met you, and it was Luca and some other person, and I remember you guys were vibing, and I was like, after I met you guys, I was like, man, those guys, they think they're so cool. But I think I was just jealous because they were cool.
Dang. So, like, what was your first... Hold this. I'm going to edit. So, what was your first... close the window. What was your first moment of connection?
Me and Chris?
Yeah. When did you realize that, like, hey, this guy's pretty good at what he does? Or whatever, he's pretty cool.
I was always pretty intimidated by him because he was serpent-like. But actually ended up being very warm-blooded and sweet. We went to Japan when we were like in high school for like a program. And it was like a regional program, and all kids from all around the country. It was like an all-star band. We did this Japan tour. And that's when I started connecting with Chris. That's the first time we ever hung out on that tour. Because we were the best.
It was the first time I left the country. And it was like, it's pretty far away. And it was a great bonding experience. And like a lot of great musicians kind of getting together in a really beautiful place.
That's where we met Henry Solomon. He was in there. Emmanuel Wilkins was in there, who's Coleman Hughes, who's a political commentator now and writer. Who else was in there?
Wallace Roney.
Wallace Roney Jr.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great time. It was like
How old were you guys when you went to Japan?
16.
I was like probably 17.
Yeah. 16, 17.
So were you like wilding out,
Mm-hmm.
kind of having the time of your lives?
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
We had like host families we were staying with.
Where we experimented with drinking for the first time.
Oh,
I had my first beer there. Ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Japan?
In Japan.
Wow.
First
That's
beer
fun.
ever. It was crazy.
So after, you guys, how long you've been friends?
How long?
Yeah, what did you say?
Probably like 12 years, like 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you feel comfortable saying, what's something as musicians or as collaborators that you feel like you worked through or continue to work through as, I guess you'd say, bandmates or close collaborators
worked
on this
through?
record?
Record?
What's the difficulty that you kind of pushed through to the other side to make something great?
What?
That's a hard question, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, the more boring. I mean, my mind is constantly like, should I say something boring or not? But I'm just gonna not try to not be boring. I'm just gonna
just say
be
it's
straight
not
up and boring.
Yeah.
The hardest thing was probably vocals.
Why?
Because the instruments, like the instrumental side of things, came so easy. It goes so deep. Like I'm talking so generally. Like I could go from step one of how, but like vocals, like this album was probably started like in 2018, in a sense.
Yeah.
Maybe before.
Yeah, before, but like the idea of having an album probably started then. And the thing that kept it from not coming out was the vocals, because we would have this great instrument track, and we're instrumental, and I'm an instrumentalist, and I would just come up with these tracks, and they would just sound so good, and then I would put vocals on it. It would just always make it sound like shit.
Well, just finding the vocals in the mix of the instrumentals was hard.
Yeah.
We like a lot of the music is like the melody is so rich by itself with the instrumental, and so like putting vocals on top of that was kind of a challenge.
Well, that's why I decided a year ago to, instead of making some songs like have vocals, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just let some of them just be instrumental. That's why half the album is half instrumental, half vocal. Because I was like, I'm not gonna force putting vocals on something that doesn't even need to have vocals on it. So that freed up a lot of things. So I think some things just don't need vocals, and especially since I'm like an instrumentalist and stuff. Like I load up the track already.
Yeah.
You need a lot of space.
It's still very vocal music.
Yeah,
You know.
even if there's no vocals on it, it's very like it's supposed to sound vocal and melodic and singy. That was one of the hardest things. The other hard thing, I mean, I don't know. I mean, relinquishing control towards the end. There's some songs that Chris like wrote big parts on that I usually don't relinquish control of writing because of just the fear of not having the control. But it actually, there was moments where I was like, I literally can't. I don't know how to finish this, so I have to relinquish control. It ended up being amazing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I had to relinquish control, otherwise it wouldn't be finished. So I had no choice towards the end. So I was like, fuck it, just tell me what to sing. And
So would you just keep, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, like, on "I'm So Serious," like,
Yeah.
that's a song, for example, I wrote and recorded in 2019, and I had recorded the chorus vocals, but what was missing was the verse vocals and the verse. So there was no verse, but all the instruments were there. So it was like a track that had never been finished. So like a year ago, I was just like, all right, just tell me what to sing. And he would just tell me what to sing. And that was how the verse came. I was just like, fuck it, just whatever. And that was cool because it came out good. I mean, it came out really good.
Oh, yeah.
I never would have came up with that stuff.
So you would just keep re-singing the vocals and re-singing the vocals?
I would just be drunk. I'd be like, I give up. Chris, just tell me what to sing.
As far as lyrics or
Lyrics
performance?
and on the verse, the lyrics and the melody.
Oh, okay.
I had like
Got it.
I have an upright piano in my. We did a lot of last few years of like recording in this whisper room I have in the basement, and yeah, for that track I would just like, I don't really trust my voice that much, so I would just sing with the piano because it helps me find the notes, and then, you know, Daryl has more of the voice, and so we had some cool way of recording the vocals that made it feel fresh, and Daryl figured out with this tape machine. It's like old tape machine, using it kind of as almost like a pedal, and yeah, it kind of just
sounds so cool.
Happened in a few days.
So what is the song about?
The song's about. Well, I wrote the chorus first, and it's about. I guess I'm talking to someone, like a girl, a lover, and I'm fooling around with a guy named Bob on the side or something. She discovers I'm fooling around sexually with a guy named Bob.
He is.
I am. Or whoever the character is.
Okay. The guy. He's bisexual.
Sure, yeah. That's what that means, I guess.
Wow.
And I'm so serious and you're so curious, why I was fooling around with Bob. I know he's not much of a heartthrob, but I never ever want to go home. Like, I'm having fun with this guy named Bob, who's he's not a heartthrob per se, but I'm not in love with it. I'm into it. But I'm not rejecting the girl either. It's more of, it's kind of open ended of the scenario, but that's the premise.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, this podcast is for the girlies as well as the musicians. So, as far as I have a couple questions. When it comes to dating, are you guys musicians only, or they have to like jazz, or how does that work?
I've realized, maybe we could edit some of this. We'll see.
It's okay. I'm a good editor.
To be really true, I've realized over years, now that actually I connect the most with jazz musicians.
Oh, that's
girl
beautiful.
Jazz musicians.
Oh.
But I don't want to get specific because I'm recording with this girl Mar, and I feel connected with her because. And there was this girl Veronica a long time ago. I'm just dropping names. This should be edited out. But I would say music. I don't think I've. You know what? I haven't been with many non-musicians actually. But then again, I've been with music lovers. I don't think I've ever been with a non-music lover. But I mean, have you ever been with a person who doesn't like music? I mean, I guess I've been with people who are they're either musicians or they're hipsters that like music, and I guess all hipsters like music.
Yeah.
So I mean, I met this random lady on Hinge, and she just has coworkers, and it's a whole different world from she went to the Dodgers game with her coworkers, and she's not a musician, she's not a hipster, she's 40, and
so
that's a fluke, but usually it's people that are.
But usually you realize it's mainly jazz musicians.
Well, I found that the people I think I've been the most connected to are jazz musicians, or they're jazz musicians that like other kinds of music, which is me, But that goes across the board, even with friends and and lovers. It kind of what's the C word? It coincides. It aligns between friends and lovers.
It's it's a puzzle.
They're like me, and a lot of people are opposites attract and stuff. But for me, sure. But I kind of want someone that's been through the same thing as me,
yeah,
a jazz musician that wants to make pop.
Yeah,
and that's Pedro.
That's pretty specific.
Us
as far as dating goes.
I know it's very specific, but being in the jazz world is like almost being in like the scene of people that put ships in bottles or something, like that scene. Like it's or people that make wax, like they make sculptures out of soap. Is there a
jazz scene in LA? Are you the king of it, or are you
I would say maybe the king of it's probably Lewis Cole.
On the top of the mountain.
There's a big scene of just little. It's like little scenes in a big
little
scene.
Scenes.
It's like little cities in a big city.
Got it.
Which is what LA is.
Well, I'm a New York jazz musician, so I'm new to here. So the jazz scene out here is a little bit more pop-a-line.
It's changed a lot in the last 3 years.
Like Lewis Cole, like it's very
Thundercat.
in Thundercat. Or maybe more so Lewis. I don't really know.
I think LA. I'm from LA, so I feel like seeing it from when I was little, or when I got into jazz, it was like a little more trying to be New York, like 10 years ago maybe, and then
by being straight ahead, like acoustic jazz,
more acoustic jazz, and now it seems,
but it never was that
really,
good.
really kind of built into this beautiful scene of like people wanting to write more songs and sort of, break through the rules of what it means to be a jazz musician, and more just making their own music, and that's kind of growing the scene, so everyone's doing their own thing more.
A lot of jazz musicians out here move in the past maybe 8, or since I've been aware of it, maybe since 2016. They move out here and they're like jazz musicians and they become beat makers. There's lots of examples like that. I don't know if they were even really fully
like KCRW, like
or like
Chill.
the Stones throw, or like Kiefer, like he's like a jazz musician, but he makes beats. Or like there's this guy Paul Castelluzzo, Heather. Like I think he used to make more beats. Now it's more like indie stuff. But they're like jazz guys. Like they could play, but then they're like jazz guys that they're like, oh, I like Jay Dilla. So and they're like, oh, maybe I'll instead of
like coffee shop jazz.
Sure,
coffee shop.
I don't know if they would like that.
Flying Lotus kind of.
Sure,
kinda jazz.
Flying Lotus. Yeah.
Was he jazz?
No. He's. I mean, you could speak.
I think of Flying Lotus as like a. I don't know, like a
beacon of light.
I think he kind of sees music from a place that a lot of people don't, and he's maybe like labeled as a producer, but he's like a sound creator, and I kind of think of him as a drummer mostly. Like he kind of redefined the whole Dilla tradition and like brought it to a new level, which is like a jazz, you could call it a jazz tendency of like recreating something, and definitely started a whole movement here in LA. He had the club, the Low End Theory, which I used to go to.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a huge part of the LA jazz scene, or creative improvisational music scene, Shout out Fly.
So there's a scene. That's the conclusion.
There's many scenes.
In New York, it's more like ding, 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 saxophone solo, like play ahead, and then there's like 5 soloists head out, swinging all acoustic. Out here, it's like, it's the beat makers I mentioned. With them, they put Jay Dilla beats and they put like jazz chords to it. Or there's the case with me and like Chris and Pedro and what I've been doing, which is like, it comes from like, comes from Mac Demarco and Ariel Pink, kind of, but it still has, which that's become a thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, more writing songs that have influence of people like he said, Mac and Ariel, and I mean a lot of 70s rock and just pop music that we like, and then combining that to all from the brain of an improviser or a jazz musician. So
what we're doing is kind of like, sometimes with Pedro, it's almost like a little bit derivative fusion, 80s fusion, and then it's recorded on tape. Pretty much, I mean, I could just get into it, like the music I've been making since 2014, since I got to college. Before I was a jazz musician, I was like a sought after young jazz bassist, and that was what people wanted me to do. I played really fast, and I liked the way I played, but it hurt, and then when you play upright bass, you're not heard, and it sucks, and there's so much effort for so much little return. So when I got to college, I was like, fuck bass, and maybe I did a little acid. I don't know. And the combination of that and then discovering Mac Demarco and Ariel Pink, I was like, fuck, like, because there's a lot of jazz musicians who like would play jazz, like, and they'd be like, ooh, I want to cover like a Flying Lotus song, or I want to cover like an MIA song, but in the context of jazz, we still played at the Vanguard or the jazz, but then like cover Radiohead or something in a jazz context. And then when I got to college, I was like, wait, instead of being a jazz person that likes this, what if I just was Radiohead? What if I like broke through the thing instead of being like a jazz guy that wants to cover pop? What if I was the MIA or the Radiohead? Totally. So then I was like, and I saw the Mac videos and stuff, and I was like, oh, wait. Before recording, I thought it was just for nerds. Like, I was the musician, and then the engineers would just do it for me, the nerds. And I was like, oh, fuck, who cares? But then when Mac did it, I was like, oh my God, like, I could do it. It's like sexy to record. And then I was like, okay, the format in which I do it, like, I'm still going to make kind of poppy, jazzy fusion songs like I do, but it's going to be under the, like, I am the pop artist. Yeah. I'm not just the jazz wannabe crossover guy. Like, I actually am the indie. Yeah. I am the Mac Demarco, or I am the Ariel, you know? Yeah. Like, as a model. Yeah. So moving to LA for me, that fits for me because, like, I have the New York jazz thing, but then I also like the indie stuff, but I've combined the jazz and then the rock I like with that. So that's the thing. I mean, once my album comes out, you know, it hasn't been fully exemplified because I've been holding on to this music for so long. So I figured I'd say that right now.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. If I could add to that.
Yeah.
I was making a solo album in 2016. I believe I was 19. And I made this record in the studio. It was a nice studio and kind of just had everything there. I didn't really know how to record music. I just was like, there's a guy who does it, right? You get in there and you play. There's a guy who records your music for you. Maybe you got a guy who mixes it, and then you're done. And that's kind of like the jazz thing. All those Blue Note records of the last like 20 years, it's very like, you know, you got the same guy, like Dave Darlington or whatever, mixes all the records, and they all kind of sound very flat. Similar, very flat. Meeting Daryl we went to college together also. I don't know if that was mentioned, but I think during that process, a huge like, oh shit moment kind of came where like Daryl was kind of at the beginning of, he got his first tape machine and he showed me stuff he was doing. I was like, whoa, like, how are you getting these sounds? And it's like, the real answer was like, you got to have the full control of doing this yourself and figuring out the sounds yourself. And you can't just be in a place where the guy is doing all of it and you're just assuming it's going to come out well. And so for me, that was like, oh my God, like that this is like possible. Like, I don't have to separate the engineer to be the engineer and the mixer to be the mixer.
You could be all of it.
You could be all of it. And the more your brain is connected to all that, the music, I think, can be more clear because you're fully in control of like I always say, like, mixing is part of the composition. If you're, I mean, the amount of mixing we did together is psychotic, but it was like
mix from step one, not just
But it was like secondary composition. We have everything recorded, and now we're like kind of rebuilding things to pop a certain way, and that's composition to me. So to get someone else to like do that for you and expect to read your mind is kind of, you know.
I agree. It seems impossible almost, but it works for people.
Some people it works, and maybe you get a guy who knows how you work really well. But like, you know, for us, Daryl really taught me that, and like now I'm just kind of like, that's the only way I want to make music, you know, and it makes sense more.
Do you guys have like a studio pet peeve? Like, say you're in the studio. Do you have any session kind of pet peeves?
Well, there's this girl I'm recording with. She makes great music, but she chews on her nail. And it sounds like ratatouille. And I haven't really told her, but it makes me nervous because she's obviously nervous that I'm not doing something fast enough. Or I don't know what it is. I was just thinking about that today.
Got it. It's like, hey, can you hurry up, sir? Kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I see.
Maybe she could do a little quieter.
It's her way of saying like cracking the whip, kind of.
Not even cracking the whip. It's a silly one. I think a better one.
No, that's a good one.
There's not a particular person, but there's a lot of people, I would say, that maybe go into this category. But I really, it's annoying when I see someone who has like, you know, every keyboard, every synth of all time in their studio, and you hear the music they make, and it's obvious they haven't used a single one of those instruments in their fancy, you know, multi-million-dollar studio.
Yes.
That's a little like, yeah, I don't know. It's a little like, okay.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
For me, it's when too many references when you're in the middle of a song. So say you finish your track, or you're in the middle of your track, right? And someone immediately says it sounds like this, and it doesn't sound like that to you. For instance, okay, say you made like a sick rock track, and someone's like, "Dude, this is so White Stripes," and you're like, "No," and in your mind, you weren't thinking that at all.
Oh, you're like, fuck, I wasn't going for that.
Yeah, you weren't going for White Stripes, and they say that, and it throws you off. Worse is if they say, "Oh, this is so White Stripes," and then they hit it with like 2 or 3 more references that are not something that you're into.
I lately have been getting good references. Luckily, like someone,
and it makes you.
Well, only if it's on the nose. But lately, like someone's like, "Oh, it sounds like Jesse's Girl," and I'm like, "Yes!" Like I wasn't specifically because I really. But then someone on YouTube commented, if I'm so serious, it's like, "Oh my god, so 2004." And I was like, "What?"
Well, this is more for like when you're in the studio.
Oh, in the studio?
After, it's fine. Whatever you get from it is cool. But when I'm trying to create, you know what I mean? Yeah.
With, I guess it remains. I don't think, I mean, what's a bad reference someone...
You had a good one, the pet peeve. When someone has a lot of equipment, but they don't use it.
Another one is too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't like when I go to a studio session and there's like 20 guys doing nothing and they're all like talking over while you're trying to make something. And that's happened to me a lot. And it's like, there's too many people here.
Yeah.
And it's you know.
I actually like that. It's really? Like a performance. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, all right, you guys. Yeah. When there's, in fact, I actually love a session that's like a studio session that's kind of a party at the same time. I love that. That's my shit.
That. I guess more writing. When you're writing something. When you're writing, yeah. Like if it's just like me and Daryl writing a song, that's already so much. And then like if there's a third person in there that's gonna, you know, sometimes a third is okay, but like after that it can get.
I find generally much. 2 works. Like
2 works, yeah.
Like even with my music, it's always been just me, and then towards the like in 2019, I was like, I need help, and then Chris started like helping me out and stuff, but even that was a stretch. Like that was the first time I would let anyone even put their fingers in it.
I see. So you're very
I've always been
solo dolo. Me. Got it.
So like I was like, and then Chris was the first person to ever put their fingers
you let into your process
to like mix stuff or.
And how old were you when you let him in?
To my music, probably the first time we ever like
my senior.
Probably like 2019.
Okay, so this is
Golden Showers, and he played drums on it, and that was the first track I let anyone else.
And this is after. Okay, so this is after you guys had already been friends.
We had been friends for a while.
Okay, all right.
But then I feel that worked because if it was anyone else, they'd be like, you really should do this, and
got it.
I'd be like, no, but it was a good fit. And then over time, now I'm working with this girl named Mar Villaseca, and she's heard my music. I've sent her stuff throughout the past 4 years. And that's been working really well because she makes this great Todd Rundgren, Christopher Cross music, and I put the sounds on it. And again, that's 2. It's perfect. Yeah. Like no one, and she'll be kind of firm about something, and I'll be a little bit defensive, firm about something back. But it's just the perfect amount of firmness. Yeah. That it's not like.
So you're a 2s guy, for the
when we did stuff with Pedro, when we did Polo specifically.
With Pedro we did Polos. That was Pedro's song that we like helped produce it.
Either way, the way that happened worked
Yeah.
well as but
Yeah.
generally it's
I'm
just
talking
me
about
and
writing mostly. When
Writing?
you're writing, two is.
well, we've written with Pedro.
Oh, that's
during
I would-
Zoom, and the 3 was good.
I would agree with what you're saying as
Yeah.
far as, I mean, I think something that's worked for me as far as songwriting with a group of people, only really if you're, I feel like it only kind of works maybe if you're making the track itself. Because something that I will do in the studio is I'll be like, all right, you verse, you verse, you verse. Everyone gets a verse.
Right.
And that's more just a fun exercise or game. Playing
We play
games in the
games, too.
studio is
We
the
play
best.
games. During COVID, me and Pedro and Chris, we did this one song. I'd never done this before, but it was literally like linear writing. It was very like, all right, you write the first 4 bars,
Yeah.
and then like I'd be Chris, write one. He'd be like,
Yeah.
and then all right, next me,
Yeah.
and then Pedro, very linear.
Yeah,
like,
almost like a rap song. Like, here, your verse, then
It
your
was like
verse.
write a story. You
Yeah,
write
yeah,
the-
yeah.
She went to the
Yes.
store, and then she did the
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and it came out really good. Actually.
Yeah. No, I feel it. You know what I find never works in the studio? At least for me, or very little. Like, okay, say you're trying to find the next lyric, right?
Right.
And you want to give up because it's hard, and you can't think of that button word, or you just can't think of the next line.
Right.
And out of desperation, you look to the person next to you who has no idea what's going on with the lyric.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Hey, you got anything for this?" And you read them everything. They have nothing, and they probably won't have nothing. But you really just wasted time by asking them instead of just
doing it
finishing
yourself.
your thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to never work for me. Like letting
outsourcing.
Yeah,
and
outsourcing. Yes, you outsource, wasted
No,
the
exactly,
time.
that's
You know
what-
what I mean? You're like, why did I even
No,
do
there's
it?
one time
And then
I-
the person like twiddles their thumbs just for fun because they're in the studio, and like, you know what I'm saying?
Most times when I've been like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I need someone to help me or do this, and I'll be like, oh, I'm glad I'm here at the studio, and then we start doing it, and I'm like, oh fuck, I wish I was at home right now.
Oh yes,
Like I'll go to like a better
yes.
studio, like
Yeah.
to record something, and we're doing it. I'm just like, oh, we should be at home now. There's just something about
You
being
know what?
in my.
That is something
it happens like 99% of the time.
It's the grass is always greener. This concept.
It is
It
that.
it's really it relates to the creative process a lot. I find
It is that, but
right.
I rather not outsource though. I don't. It's
Yeah.
grass is green, but it's also like it's a lesson. Like I should just do it myself.
I know what you're saying.
For me,
I want to.
Yeah.
I think I just wrote a song with someone, and I never had met them before, and I felt like, and I was writing lyrics with them and melodies and whatever. I had the instrumental, and the song came
That's
out
pretty good.
really well because we didn't really know each other too well, so we didn't have any expectation of what we were
Yeah.
like trying to see who each other was. We were just kind of like, oh, that's good, cool, like accepting first thoughts,
Yeah.
which sometimes in lyric writing could be like, oh, that's too corny, oh, we got it, oh, that's too corny, and there's a lot of that's too this, and then you end up writing a song that's like about nothing because it's just everybody's diminishing each other's ideas because it's to this or to that, and so that's back to the too many cooks in the kitchen. But I think you have to be open to like allowing almost like a level of corniness or something that's maybe, you know what I mean, and you can edit it later.
Yeah.
But specifically with lyrics. But that's how, I mean, when Daryl and I wrote lyrics together, and I don't know, I feel like we also have a humor thing together that's like, so it's fun, and we could be funny and weird, and it's like,
Yeah.
and it's, you know, and even if nobody understands it, it's still like, okay, let's move on, let's not overthink it, you know. At least that's how I feel, because once you overthink it, the lyrics can start sounding too
I have a
perfect.
question.